Let's go back to content, what your content should look like and what the approach you should be taking is. Whose objective was number one? What makes good content? I think there were a couple of people who talked about that. Was it you, Tom? And James, you talked about content as well.
Yes.
Okay. So, do you currently create content?
Some, yes. There's the marketing team. There's multiple people contribute to it.
Okay. And how are you currently measuring how what's making it quite good content socially in your view?
Web page hits, but more than that, sort of, we're not really sure. So.
Right. Okay. Yes, because there's always a challenge about how much content you create for your audience and whether they've genuinely got time to consume it all and digest it, let alone respond to it. Do you have any measures for successful content in place, or do you have any kind of parameters around which you work?
So usually the content is part of a wider campaign.
Okay.
And yeah, from that then we'll try and tag it so that people coming through on that content we can register them as a lead generated from that campaign.
Right. Okay. Okay. So it's kind of it's content that's supporting specific comms or marketing campaigns,
yeah,
as opposed to just a kind of separate content strategy.
Yeah.
Okay. And is any of it republishing old content or content that you've gathered from elsewhere?
Not really. So recently on some of the social media, one of my other colleagues is trying to because it's quite a niche service that we provide,
yeah,
trying to get sort of more human interest articles.
Okay.
And try and link it to what we do, but also have that approach of bringing in a broader audience.
Okay, because one of the dangers with content is that, and one of the traps that organisations will often fall into, is effectively to have all their content being very, very focused on their own product or their own service. But the reality of engaging with your audience, particularly in a B2C environment, is that you will begin to lose interest amongst your audience if you're too focused on selling through content. Content is about creating value, like we talked about. And in a B2C environment, the rule of thumb that people tend to follow is the 80-20 rule. So approximately 20% of your content should be focused on your product, and the 80% should be focused not on the product, but really on value that, sure, might be aligned in some way, maybe even tenuously, to your product, but really it should be about trying to make a connection with people, trying to engage them in conversation that then might route back round to the product. In a business-to-business environment, in my experience, it's slightly different. In a business-to-business environment, for example, in a Google community or in a LinkedIn group, people are expecting the content and the conversation that's going on within those environments to be focused on whatever the group is about. So if the group is about data centers, that's what they want to know about. If the group is about wine tasting, that's what they want to know about. But again, I think that it's important to remember that people will switch off if it's very apparent that you've set up the group in order to try and sell your stuff to as many people as possible. They're not going there to be sold to, because if they want to be sold to, they can call up your sales desk. They're going there because they're hoping to get some value from the content that you're providing. And it's very important to remember that even in a B2B environment, people might not want to be your customer yet, but if you can hook them in, if you can get them engaged with talking about your particular specialist area, about your niche within business, about your technology, or about the discipline that you work in, then they're going to what you're going to be doing is reaching out and connecting with them on a personal level and positioning yourself and your organization as champions and experts and leaders in whatever you might be talking about. So it's very important not to just start a group in business to business or any kind of conversation in a business to consumer environment that's just sales focused, because it won't work. It will kind of blow up in your face. And it's a common mistake. Some of the organizations I've worked with in the last year have come to me and said, well, the reason that we're not doing social effectively is because when we tried it, it didn't work. And the reason it didn't work was not necessarily because they just invoked lots of negative comments, like we've already talked about, but the reason that it didn't work is because they anticipated that if they began a conversation through a LinkedIn group or through a Google community or even via Facebook, that they would instantly start to convert people into customers. And it just won't work like that. That idea of producing content that's got that 80-20 split is important in B2C, and it shouldn't be forgotten in a business-to-business environment either.